It's one of the industries or crafts, I suppose, that you look at, and I don't earn a lot of money from it, but it is incredibly enjoyable and rewarding.
I'm Robin Johnson, this is Yours for the Making, and I'm joined by Jarrad Belton, the worker of wood.
I started as a carpenter, so out of school, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I think trees are a massive inspiration for me. I love trees. I'm definitely a tree hugger. And I think for me, that's where a lot of the inspiration comes from the natural world.
This show tells the story of the makers, the people that create things, whether it's in wood or metal, whether they're artists or musicians or chefs. It doesn't matter. I'm going to tell their story.
As we were walking back to leave the college, we walked past the carpentry workshop, and it had a big roller door like that, really, really bright. There were students in there sawing wood, and you could see some people planing as well, and the wood shavings coming up. You could just smell it as well, smell the wood that they were working on. I was like, that's what I want to do. I want to go and do that.
I'm Robin Johnson, this is Yours for the Making, and I'm joined by Jarrad Belton, the worker of wood. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
So, Jarrad, we first met, you were working at English Woodlands Timber.
That's right, yeah.
You were super knowledgeable, super passionate young man, always really helpful when I was there picking timber from the rack. And since then, you've been on your own sort of journey.
Yeah. How long ago was that? I can't remember.
It was probably longer than I'd care to say.
Yeah, so that was, I think I must have been 17 probably. Yeah, absolutely loved working there. That was, it was really, really good for me to start there, because I kind of, leaving college, but didn't really know what to do. It was kind of, I wanted to be making with my hands, creating something. And working there was just one of those, I happened to find it and really, really loved the work. Yeah, I remember we had that interaction with a couple of guys there working. It was good fun.
And I think you'd show me you'd made a chessboard with a load of inlays and stuff like that, or something like that.
Geez, that must have been...
It was a long time ago.
Yeah, it was. I made a couple more since, those chessboards. But yeah, I was always kind of making there at the same time as working. So initially I started as a carpenter, so out of school. I had no idea what I wanted to do. Looking at the motorbikes, it kind of reminded me of the process, because my dad's a motorbike mechanic.
Oh, really?
So getting into that, I was leaving school. I was like, what do I actually want to do? Went to college, Chichester College, and we had a look at the open day, and there was the motorbike mechanics was one of the courses. And went in there, went to the workshop, and it was quite cold, quite dark, and everyone was wearing these overalls with grease covered, and it just felt really dingy. The work seemed cool, but I don't know, there was just a gut feeling that I was like, I don't know about this, I'm not quite sure. So I kind of felt a little bit disheartened by that. I was like, right, I don't really know what I'm gonna do. Left that workshop for the open day, and as we were walking back to leave the college, we walked past the carpentry workshop, and it had a big roller door like that, really, really bright. There were students in there sawing wood, and you could see some people planing as well, and the wood shavings coming up. You could just smell it as well, smell the wood that they were working on. I was like, that's what I want to do. I want to go and do that. So yeah, went and signed up for carpentry, and then worked there did the course there for 2 years, I think it was, carpentry and joinery. And then I worked as a carpenter for a carpentry company for a couple of years, or a year and a bit. And I'd always find that the guy I was working for Jarrad, you're taking too long to cut that joint perfectly. I'd be cutting the stair treads and stuff, or even stud walls. I'd be getting it perfect, but it was kind of you know how carpentry is. It's kind of, you have to have a bit of a faster pace to you. You have to produce work a little bit quicker. And I just was taking too long to get it perfect. So after that experience, I was kind of like, maybe I want to do something a little bit different. And the guy I was working for kind of cut down on a lot of his work, so he didn't require me as much. So we kind of, I went back and kind of looked for work elsewhere, which is when I found English Woodlands. At a wood fair, funny enough, at West Wood Fair, West Wood Fair. Met Ian there, and I think he offered me a job on the spot because I was carrying around a couple of old tenon saws that I'd bought. And he was like, if you're nerdy enough to be carrying around saws like that at your age, you're going to come and work for me. I was like, okay, well, what's the situation sort of thing? Went up there and then got a job there working as kind of a yard hand, stacking timber, pulling timber. And then sort of went towards machining timber down. So then I was working under Phil, the head machinist, and kind of an informal apprenticeship sort of thing. But that was really good. That was good to learn wood identification and that type of thing. And really, really loved it there. And then after that, I kind of wanted to progress more into furniture making. So I was always kind of making bits and pieces of furniture on the side, outside of work, taking home scraps from the sawmill and making stuff, whatever that might be. And then saved up enough money kind of doing that to go and retrain in furniture making. Went back to Chichester College, to the Brinsbury campus, and retrained there for a year of furniture making and design. And that was really, really cool. When I went back to do the interview with them, because I'd already kind of had a little bit of a portfolio of stuff I'd made whilst working there, they kind of had a look at it. Christian, the guy that was running it there, he kind of said, well, we could put you in for the first year and the second year, but from what you've produced, we think you'd be better off for the third year, which I think was actually really good of them, because they could have quite easily got more money out of me to do the 3 years. So they kind of chucked me in the deep end at the third year, which was with all the students that had done the 2 years previously. So I was kind of a little bit like, okay, everyone else has had all this experience doing this, and kind of thrown into it. But that was so good for me. It was how I developed my skills, I think, better and quicker by getting into that that third year of the training, it was unbelievable. I would go back and do it in a heartbeat. It was so good. The tutors there were unbelievable, all part-time. So they would do a few days teaching and then the rest of the week they'd be making. So it was a really good balance for them, I think, as well. Just great people there. Still friends with a lot of the guys I trained with as well.
Was it a busy course? Was it quite well subscribed?
It was, actually. Yeah, it was. It was, and there was also quite a variety of ages too. So it was a lot of sort of around the 20 years old mark. A lot of us were that sort of age. But there was also adults that had come back to retrain. That either change a career or for whatever reason they wanted to get into furniture making. So that was really interesting to have that dynamic, because you've got different walks of life coming through retraining and going through the same process. But yeah, it was really, really good.
And is that college like a private college, or is it a kind of a normal state?
Yeah, normal college? Standard college.
That's really good. They're offering furniture making as a course. That's really good.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I can't remember the last time I spoke to one of my ex-tutors, but I think unfortunately there's less interest in it now. I think listening to some of the other episodes of the podcast, I think that seems to be pretty
we
standard.
touch on that quite a lot. It's a running theme of less apprenticeships being offered, less college courses being offered, and they're kind of, I guess, where do we go from here? How do we keep it alive? The sort of things that we're doing here, that you're doing, that other people that work in these kind of industries, where are you finding the talent and where to employ, and how are you passing on the skills?
Yeah, that's right. It's difficult. I think because it's one of the industries or crafts, I suppose, that you look at, and I don't earn a lot of money from it, but it is incredibly enjoyable and rewarding. So I think it's making that clear to people that are coming into it, because I think it's so easy these days to look at different industries and think, oh yeah, I can get so much money from this and do this. It's an easy job. But, easy job, get loads of money. But furniture making is hard work. You don't get paid as much money. But I think if people are passionate about it, I think that's what drives me, my passion for it. Spend 5/7 of our life potentially working. I think doing something you love is crucial. I think there's that great Japanese diagram. Is it flow diagram, or the 3 circles? So it's like what you're good at, what you love doing, and what you can get paid to do. And somewhere in the middle there is what you should probably do. I quite like that. That's a good I think that's a good analogy of finding the right thing to do.
I like that. I haven't really thought about it like that. For me, I do this because I don't know if I could do anything else.
Sure. I mean, I feel the same, to be fair. Yeah.
I've tried working for other people. I was a school teacher for many years, and I've taught surfing before that. Both fun things that I enjoyed doing, but I knew when I was doing them that they weren't jobs that I could do for the rest of my life.
Sure.
Whereas as soon as I started doing this, times can be really hard. You work 5/7 of your life. Sometimes you're working 7/7 of your life.
Sure. Yeah.
But it's a thing that you do because you love doing it, right?
Yeah.
And if you can earn enough to get by or have a comfortable life, then people work really hard in jobs they hate and then spend money to come and do weekend courses and doing stuff like this.
100%. And I experienced that at my current job. So I'm employed, thankfully enough to say I'm employed at the Farnham School of Furniture Making, and there we teach students that have come from either out of college or like you say, people that are looking to retrain. And like you say, that hard work and stress that a lot of people have gone through, and then they're spending the money to do something that's really enjoyable. I just feel quite lucky to be able to pass on my passion and enthusiasm for the craft to those types of people. It's really rewarding, I think.
And tell me about Farnham. Is that a state-funded college as well? Is that a private school?
It's a private school, yeah. So we don't offer like a piece of paper at the end of it. It's kind of just the skills that you gain as a maker, and hopefully be able to go into the industry and get a job and sustain a career in furniture making. Whether that's cabinet making or sculptural work or whatever it might be, it's the skills and the really, really high level of refinement to then go and produce whatever you need to make. Yeah, it's really, really cool. It's a good place. It's like a second family there for me, really. It's a lovely crew. Really, really love it there. It's good.
And that also allows you enough time to work on your own stuff as well.
It does, yeah. And one of the things that Aidan, the guy that runs it, is really passionate about is all the tutors there. So I'm kind of considered as a maker / tutor at the school. So I make furniture as well as teach some of the curriculum. One of the things he's really passionate about is making sure everyone's making. So I'll often even be working on a personal project there. For instance, my dining table I'm working on currently. I've been making that at the school, a lot of that, which is, it just feels a bit cheeky sometimes. I'm like there being paid, but also making my own stuff. But the reality is it's good for the students to see that as well, because they're seeing, actually how you would produce something as a furniture maker without, necessarily the strict parameters of certain elements of furniture making. You can have different flair to what you're producing, and it's just good to see different designs and different flair of different makers. So all of our tutors are all makers essentially. Some of them specializing in like wood turning. It's an interesting or high-end marquetry, that type of thing. So it's a really, really good diverse group that are kind of all of these little elements of what we do kind of carries over into the students as well. And we're a working workshop at the same time. So we will have commissions coming through the workshop.
Really?
Yeah. So it's, we have students there full time, 5 days a week, but we also have commissions running through the workshop at the same time, which kind of...
How does that work though? Where are the commissions coming from? Is it like a lead designer there?
So yeah, we have a, so Aidan does a lot of design work. There's also a guy, Rich, that works with us, who's not in the school, so to speak, but he works outside of that, taking on client work, and then we'll bring that to the school, and then the makers will produce that.
Wow.
So yeah, it's really, really cool. It's a really good and unique setup, I think. I've not experienced anything like it before. But yeah, we've got it to the point now where it's a really, really good vibe and atmosphere in there. Everyone's looking forward to going to work every day. It's just like, it's good fun. It is really good fun. We spent a little bit of time getting it set up. So I first met Aidan when I was self-employed, and me and my wife had moved to Farnham, basically following her work. She was working for the MOD at the time, and she was based in Reading. So we kind of split the distance between my workshop in Chichester and Reading, and we kind of found a good place in Farnham. So we rented there for a bit, and I was a bit of a hired gun. I was just kind of looking around for different furniture makers, working with a few different makers. I was working with a sculptor artist, Philip Walker, for a bit. And then I found Aidan. I was just looking around online. I found him. Thought his work looks awesome. Looking at some of the stuff he'd made, I kind of saw similarities in some of the stuff that I've made. I thought I definitely want to go and hit him up, see if I can get some work with him. I reached out and he was kind of like, yeah, I'm too busy. Come back later. And then about 6 months later, came back and he took me on really. Kind of just similarities in our ethos, I think. I'm just super passionate about the craft, and I think that kind of I think he could see that. Just started work with him sort of part-time, helping out where I could. Being self-employed, I could just jump in whenever, just help out. And then after a little while of working there, he decided to expand the school. Because it was only a small little workshop before, and a little machine shop. And then we basically expanded. We made it all ourselves, which was pretty crazy. All out of Douglas fir beams.
We built the
whole thing. Yeah. Cool. So it was a big building. It was really, really good fun. We basically sent out like a newsletter to all of the previous people that had visited the school, alumni, that type of thing, and said, look, we're doing something crazy. Do you want to get involved? We had about I think it was about 20 so people come back and give us a hand. And we had a really, really tight knit crew that were just working on this building, just all volunteers. But it was really, really wholesome because we'd have like lunch and dinner together, working on this big frame in the summer. It was lovely. It was a really, really cool experience. I'd never done anything like it. It was excellent. We were planing down some of these joints, these massive scarf joints, planing them down with hand planes and cutting them all out with Japanese saws and
the
slicks.
Difference compared to when you were working in carpentry years before, where it
all came back to me. Yeah, it all came.
But now no one's going to say, "Look, you're taking too long on that joint."
Oh, true.
Because everything's going to be on show.
Do you know what the really funny thing about that was? Because Aidan is the same. We were making the concrete shuttering, the shutter board for pouring the concrete, because it was a massive pour, and we spent days getting this shuttering board like millimeter precise. And the concrete guys turn up and we're like, "What's all this? Why have you spent so long putting all this shuttering board up?" And then it was just like straight in, job done.
Yeah.
We could have like halved our time probably spent on that. But I think that's just the mindset of furniture making, right? It's everything has to be super, super precise. It was I found my people there, I think, for sure. It's nice.
Good. I mean, it sounds great. It sounds like a dream, and having that sense of community. It almost sounds like an Amish barn build or something like that.
It was very similar to that. It literally was very similar to that. It was I've never done anything like it before. It was great.
So have you kept your studio in Chichester as well?
Yeah. Okay. Still got my workshop, so I still work from there on like private, like my own commissions. I would do there. A mix in between the school, so I can use the school and then use my workshop as well. I mean, I've got no hobbies, so I'm just like there constantly. That's all I do.
Well, you've got one big hobby.
Oh, true.
Working with wood it's a life, isn't it? It's a hobby that you can live by.
Yeah.
And your own work, tell me about some of that. So obviously I've seen a lot of your stuff on Instagram. It's fantastic. But what's the, I guess if someone wanted to search your work, have you got like a key piece or key style or?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think, obviously all my work, I would say, takes inspiration from nature. So whether that's forms of a leaf or, mushrooms or whatever it might be, from nature, it's usually quite natural. Not a lot of straight lines on it, I would say. It's all curved work. A lot of it is all curved work. Just nature inspired pieces really. I think trees are a massive inspiration for me. I love trees. I'm definitely a tree hugger. And I think for me, that's where a lot of the inspiration comes from the natural world. When I was in college, one of the things that was kind of not really covered was sourcing timber. It was, and that's not a slight against the college at all. I had a really, really good time there. But one of the things that I found kind of frustrating was there was no real talk of where the wood was coming from. It was, it comes from the sawmill. And that was kind of it. That was our understanding. And I think for me, that's quite a dangerous mindset, because obviously the material we're using is so important in terms of sustainability. And I know it's a word that gets thrown around a lot, but the rapacious nature of how timber is harvested, I think is quite dangerous. So it's called an infinite resource, right, timber? But I think it's only infinite if we actually manage it correctly. So I kind of took it upon myself to research and understand, where are we actually sourcing these trees from? Are they being managed correctly? Or is this just, are we just clear cutting woodlands to get what we need? So that was a real driving factor for me to get into understanding tree knowledge. And also Philip Walker, I mentioned earlier, he taught me a lot about tree identification and understanding trees, because he was an arborist and sculpture artist, which is quite a cool mix. But he taught me a lot about identifying trees. And I think it's crucial as furniture makers to have an appreciation for the material we work with, and understanding trees and the cycle of how we harvest them, and can work in conjunction with them to produce beautiful things. I find myself in quite an ironic situation as a furniture maker, having that mindset, but I'd rather see a tree standing than actually turn it into a piece of furniture. That's kind of my thought process on that, I guess.
Interesting, particularly as you spent years milling up logs.
Maybe that's what it was.
You can hear the screams as you're casting it through the thicknesser.
Yeah.
It's really interesting that you think of it in that respect. I think when I think of trees and the species and the timber that we're using, I think of it from an aesthetic point of view. What's it going to look like with, if we're making furniture or if we're making joinery, are we using the right species? Is it going to give the right look? But also, is it going to have the right properties, the strength, the movement or lack of movement? Is it going to finish the way that we want it to be finished? So I kind of look at different species and think, how's it going to behave and perform, and what's it going to look like? Whereas I guess because we kind of blindly put our blinkers on when we're ordering timber, and if it's got an FSC stamp on it, we'll just assume that it comes from a managed source. But having been to clear cut forests now, I was mountain biking in Scotland last month, and there's areas that are just it's like monocrop. Monocrop. It's almost like farming.
It is. It's essentially that.
Huge swathes of, I think, probably Douglas fir or
Sitka spruce usually.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then when they come cut it down, they just cut an acre at a time.
That's right. Yeah.
Fell it. But you see there's nothing on the forest floor.
There's no nature in there, there's no bird song. It's dead. It's like a desert essentially. The needles create just no habitable soil. It's
great for mountain biking.
Sure.
but pretty much nothing else.
Yeah, it's one of those things that I think more makers are becoming aware of this now as well. I think there's more of a push for that and sort of understanding, that mindset. And I think what I find myself in a fortunate situation where I can impart that with students as well, and instill that mindset moving forward, because we get a lot of people coming in that want to use tropical woods, and I quite selfishly just say no. You're not going to do that. I'm not here, at least not whilst I'm training you. That's just not what I'm about, for sure.
But then there's an argument from a sustainability perspective, because it's not just about where the product comes from, it's about how long the thing lasts made out of that product. So if we're making outdoor benches, for instance, we know that the best thing that you could possibly use for that really is Iroko.
Sure.
And it is a tropical hardwood. It comes from a sustainable source, perhaps. I mean, it's got the stamp on it, so we can put our fingers in our ears and whistle about that. Yeah. But we know that if you made that same bench in oak, it'd probably last 2/3 of the time.
Sure, understood.
If you made it in softwood, it'd be 1/4 of the time. So, I kind of look at it like, well, you're going to use that exotic timber, but for the application, it's the best thing. And if we could use a locally felled oak, which would be much better, and probably, if we're talking about carbon footprint, it probably has a lesser carbon footprint, but you'd have to do that same thing twice to give the same lifespan.
I hear you for sure. It's such a tangly web. When you look at England, in the reality, we just don't have enough trees.
No.
We're, I think, the 3rd worst in the world at importing timber, which is, I think, a crazy.
We're not a very big island either.
A crazy statistic.
Yeah.
I think the third. I don't think America, they've like opted out of that list. There's a great study. I can't remember the article, but there's a great study on importation of timber, and I think we're third worst on the list there, which I think is just crazy. But it comes down to managing the material we work with, doesn't it, and having that understanding.
We don't have huge forests.
This is true.
If you drive through the country, if you go on a long drive cross country, how often are you driving for minutes and minutes and minutes through forestry?
It's so true.
You know, I think it used to be like that before farming kind of evolved. But we're a small island with a lot of people. Yeah. And we do a lot of building. We make a lot of things. I know. So I can understand it. You know, you go to France, there's a lot more for it. And Napoleon, in his infinite wisdom, planted all those poplar trees. So you buy poplar, long, straight lengths of poplar, 2 to a penny, because they're everywhere.
I think that's an interesting point, actually, about France. Their silviculture is quite good in how they manage woodlands. You look at how they plant trees. They have softwoods growing next to hardwoods. So you have Scots pines and oaks growing together. And what they'll get is the Scots pines growing really quickly, and the oaks will try and compete with that to get the sunlight. So they grow oaks a lot faster.
That's why French oak's nice and straight and
usually pretty clean as well, right? Because they don't have defender branches that go out as quick. They try and get up rather than trying to defend themselves. They're trying to compete forward. So it's a really, really good way of managing timber, because it also means you get faster, stronger timber, right? So you got early wood and late wood in the growth rings. Fast grown hardwoods is a lot stronger.
I did not know that.
So that mindset of how they manage the woodlands is really, really good.
Introduce natural competition.
It creates a faster product. The turnaround is quicker to harvest rather than waiting hundreds and hundreds of years for an oak tree to grow.
And the walnut as well. I mean, there's a lot of walnut in France. You go for a walk my parents live in France. We go and see them often. And when we go for a walk, we'll go for a wood kind of glade of trees, and there's always 2 or 3 walnut trees with loads of walnuts on the floor and stuff, and red squirrels dancing around. It's very beautiful to look at. But there's a lot of walnut, and I think actually, when was the last time that I saw a walnut tree in England in the wild? I know English walnuts are prized timber to buy, but I can't actually remember seeing a walnut tree. I don't think ever.
Really?
And I can't think if I've actually seen one in the wild before. And you'd know it when you saw it.
Yeah.
But in France, everywhere. And it's really interesting that you've said about that mix of timber and how it's almost like there's almost an argument for a complete cradle to grave product. I mean, if you were given an infinite amount of land and money to invest, you could design your dream woodland with competing species to get the best properties out of that timber.
100%.
And then you could be milling it, drying it, machining it, making
it's the dream.
And then have a shop at the end where you're kind of selling it.
That is the dream, right? Because you've also got the biodiversity of that woodland as well. So it's not just a monocrop. It actually sustains wildlife as opposed to just
key.
100%.
And then, there's a lot of talk about biodiversity in farming and monoculture in farming and the soil degradation. But it happens in woodlands as well. That soil, you can't sustainably grow monocrop trees for long periods. I mean, trees is different to farming. You go season by season, right? And the soil, you might have a fallow year every 4 years or whatever, and the soil kind of gradually degrades and then gets slightly better and then gradually degrades. When you talk about that in forestry, though, you're talking about 30, 40, 50, 100-year periods. But it will happen eventually.
Well, there is agroforestry, which is like introducing trees to farmland and managing them accordingly, which is quite interesting. I just don't think it's widely there yet in terms of...
But also the volume that we'd need is terrifying, really.
Exactly. But just in terms of producing better soil quality, there are concepts there that are pushing for this, I think. But yeah, it's a difficult situation. I don't think there is a silver bullet to any of it. I think it's the diversity that I think is key for making it all work, and these different flares to things.
And it's also market demand. I've got a friend that had a load of land planted overseas, planted loads of Paulownia. Is it Paulownia? It's a really light white timber, because that is one of the best timbers to produce for paper manufacture.
Okay, interesting.
Polonia, I think it's called.
I'm not sure.
Anyway, he's got a load of land overseas. Plant doors Polonia, and it grows quickly. So like 20 years, trees are at full maturity.
Yeah.
Sell them for paper, and they yield, if you're looking at kind of dollars per acre, that's at the time was the biggest yield.
Wow.
And if you can do it sort of sustainably. So from a business perspective, why would you do anything else? You know, you plant your one thing, you let it grow, you cut it down, you sell it off, you know, and you're making the most money. But it's really interesting to think about the drive of economy versus nature, and how can we kind of, I guess we've got some sort of responsibility as makers, and you particularly as a teacher, tutor, to drive market demand for these native species. And that might have a small influence on how things are being grown and where they're being grown and the methods are being grown. But in comparison to like the demand for softwood timber on building sites, you know. Yeah,
it's so true. It's so true. It's
just, there isn't any comparison.
No.
But I actually read an article that said, I think because we export a lot of our timber as well, but we export the biggest amount of timber that we export, I believe, is to the United States, which is burnt as biofuel.
Really?
Yeah.
Did not know that.
In the UK, so Scotland, Wales, everywhere. I think, I could be wrong. I should have read it again before this, but I think our biggest timber export is biofuel. So I think it's trees that are felled and chipped, and actually the chipping sold, because it's still timber. It's still a timber product. So I think that's where most of our timber goes to. We're not even natively turning it into CLS or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
Most of our CLS is imported from Scandinavia, I think.
That sounds about right. Yeah.
But then when you fly over, if you fly over Scandinavia, all you see is trees, you know, and we talk about kind of monocrop. When the Russia-Ukraine war started, you know, birch ply production essentially stopped.
Yeah.
Because most of that kind of area of Russia and Ukraine is just birches everywhere and almost nothing else.
True. Yeah, thankfully I don't use plywood in my personal work, so I was safe from that. I think for me it's just, my favorite thing to use is when someone's come to me and said, you know, we've had this tree come down, can you use this? That for me, I'm super excited by that, because it's like, you know, it's come down in a storm or whatever. Best case scenario, I can make something out of that, you know. Worst case scenario, I can't, and that's fine. But using timber that's come down and someone that's cherished that tree when it was alive, for me, is a very rewarding type of work, because you're then, you know, giving it a second life, and that's, you know, the carbon is sequestered with that. So you can give that tree a second life, essentially. That for me is the best case scenario.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
My friend Damo was on the podcast a little while ago. He's a fellow joiner, and he was doing a staircase for a customer, and the customer sort of brought him out to the barn and said, look, this is an oak tree it's felled, we've slabbed it up. It's been in the barn 20, 30 years, but I used to climb this oak tree as a child. So now the oak tree that he climbed as a child, he's now climbing every day up and down the staircase, because Damo made the staircase out of that.
So
timber.
cool.
So that's a great thing. You know, we haven't really, I mean, I've used a lot of the Great Storm, the 87 Storm. We bought a lot of Great Storm felled trees locally that have been drying out and stuff. And we use a lot of that for some furniture we made kind of back in the day. And then I went back to get more of that stock, and it, you know, there was a whole warehouse twice the size of this room, and it was full, and I thought, that'd be there for ages. And then, you know, 1 month it was there, and then the next month it completely sold. It's like, oh no.
Yeah. I mean, finding stuff like that finding little gems, diamonds in the rough, is really cool. I remember when I finished college, I might have actually been in between when I was training. I went down because I wasn't really doing any work at that point. I was kind of doing speculative stuff whilst I was training at college, and doing a bit of work at the sawmill, and just kind of pottering around with trying to find a real niche I could get into, or what I wanted to get into. So I would just go around to different sawmills trying to find cool English wood. And I took a friend of mine, Johnny, in my little Nissan Micra. We drove up to Romsey, to East Brothers sawmill, and they have a huge contract with like the railroad. So they have massive slabs of timber that's cut up, and very impressive machines. We had a tour of the place, and it was, you know, the machines they've got there, it's just like processing trees, essentially. It's quite an impressive setup. But we had a look around there because I'd heard there was another maker that had told me they had some English walnut. So we took the trip up there to have a look around, and, you know, we're sifting through these massive, massive stacks of, you know, probably like 200 mil slabs of like Iroko and Sapele and that type of thing, like massive, massive, almost as wide as this table, huge trees. And we're going through all these stacks, and I spot this tiny little pack just a little bit up on one of the stacks there. I looked at John, I was like, that's English walnut. So we went and had a look at it, and we climbed up on the stack and started sifting through. And it was like some of the nicest tree I've ever seen in my life. It had like spalting in it.
Really?
Some of the end was like slightly rotten, so it was not usable. But where it had gone like to a sound piece of wood, it had spalting in it, which I've not really seen in walnut a lot. So I was like, I'm going to have to buy this. This is incredible.
Put it on the roof of the mic.
So literally I said to the guy, I was like, can you come down and price some of this timber for us? And because of my experience working at the sawmill, I thought it was easily going to be like 100 plus for a board of this. And the guy comes down, he takes some measurements and gets his calculator out and starts pricing it up. He goes, oh yeah, that's been sat around for a while.
It's a bit rotten at the end.
Yeah, a bit rotten at the end. He goes, 40 quid a board. And I literally looked at Johnny and was like, yeah, I'll take all of it. And literally we managed to, I selfishly like bought as much as I could fit in the micro. Literally, he was in the back seat and I pushed it through the top there and had the car full of this walnut log. I actually went back following time to pick up the rest of it. But I bought probably 15 boards of maybe
Wow.
10, 15 boards of the tree. And I've got two of them left now. But I'm too like nervous to cut up because it was one of those bittersweet parcels of timber that I've bought because I was so green to furniture making. I was so new to it, and it was possibly the best material I've ever worked with, and I've now got like none of it left. And I was exposed to that so early in my career that was like, this is just the dream thing to work with. And I kind of wished that I'd been exposed to that later so I could have more of an appreciation for it. So I feel like at the time I was like, yeah, this is great. This is like the nicest thing ever. But in reality, I wish I'd kind of experienced that now with what I know now. Using it, I think would have been a little bit better because I've not worked with anything like it since. So it's kind of bittersweet for me.
It is magic when you get a really special log or whatever. It's just when something comes in, when we get it from, you know, typical timber suppliers, it will be it'll be sawn. It won't be squared edge. It'll just be sawn timber we buy in. But I always say it's a real treat going over to English Woodlands and picking the logs and stuff. If you're picking, you know, the kind of the logs from the balls and stuff. But yeah, it's when you get those kind of people with barns that have just felled up. I found a similar thing, but it was cherry. It was probably the biggest cherry slabs I've ever seen.
Nice.
And they'd milled them, but the milling wasn't great, so you couldn't really see how good it was. I think it was done probably with like a
Alaska mill or something.
Yeah, or I mean at best, I'd say. Right. It was a wobbly one if it was. I think someone had done a really good job with a chainsaw and some blocks maybe, but yeah, I mean it wasn't milled great. It'd been sat for a long time, there's dust all over it.
Right.
And kind of brushed it off. I was like, oh, it looks kind of interesting. Splashed a bit of water and thought, yeah, and I like the colour of it. My God, when we got it through the thickness of the first board, it was come out the other side, it was like oh my God, this is so good. I think I've kept probably 3 or 4 boards, but
nice.
They're stacked onto another load of Scotch elm that we got with loads of character that I try to only use a little bit of and keep the rest, and then they're stacked on something else. So we've got like one bit of racking that just is all the special stuff. Yeah. But you kind of forget about it.
I know, it's dangerous, isn't it? I've got a shed just full of timber that I'll probably never use.
I've started using it now. I think, it's just sat there.
Yeah.
I could make something for my house. But so it back to your actual work. So I always think making furniture as a career it's hard unless you get to that kind of the top where you're in demand. And I sort of don't understand it. I mean, we make furniture commercially. A lot of it's cabinetry and stuff as well. So I know when my clients are on how to get them, but I've never understood how you go from coming out of college, for instance, unless you're kind of the media superstar who's the rising star that's won all the awards, that's been in, you know, you're in the long form independent on a
Sure.
Sunday, and
Yeah,
they
yeah.
come in and interview you, and you get the fancy picture of you in your workshop and stuff, and you're selling that dream. Unless you're that guy, how do you make a name for yourself? How do you let people know what you're doing? And what sort of work are you actually able to get in? Are you making your own designs all the time, or are you reliant on people saying, I've seen this, I want something like this?
That is a really good question. So when I finished my training as a furniture maker, I went and become self-employed. And it was a huge gamble. You know, I was working at the sawmill part-time as well to kind of supplement my income a little bit. So I was working there 2 days a week, and 3 days a week I was making furniture. And I got really, really lucky with one of the first commissions. I think it actually might have been whilst I was training. I got a commission because I was setting up sort of a website and, you know, Instagram and Facebook page, social media stuff for what I was doing. Because I knew I wanted to make a career out of it. I wanted to do this for a living. I was so in love with the craft, and still am so in love with what I do. I wanted to make a living out of it. So I set up all this stuff. And I just got lucky, to be honest. I was self-employed, and I got contacted by a guy who wanted a drinks cabinet made and some floating shelves. And I thought, brilliant, this looks great. So I went to his house, the most amazing house. I felt like I shouldn't be there because the private gates opened up as I drove through my little Nissan Micra. And turned up, just, you're driving through a woodland when you got into his place. It was just exquisite. And I went in to his house, and he had Italian walnut furniture laid out everywhere. And I commented on it because at the sawmill I could tell the difference between sort of European walnut, English walnut, and American walnut. I said, oh, it's nice European walnut you've got. And he said, I'm very glad you picked up on that detail. We'd like to commission you to make it out of English walnut, as you're an English furniture maker. The previous maker was Italian and used Italian walnut. So just from that one comment, he kind of clicked that I had an understanding of the wood and the material and the appreciation for it and the appreciation for his furniture. And it was pretty much, I think it was from that comment that he kind of thought, okay, this, you know, 'cause I was quite young. He was like, okay, we'll take a chance with this guy. And I remember being super nervous about this whole interaction because it was the first big commission I'd done. I'd done a little bit of commission work before, but this was the first one. I thought, this is a full-on cabinet with actual doors and shelves, and, you know, it was a lot of work. And yeah, I just remember taking some measurements to the place, having a good conversation with him. I think I went back a couple of times just to reiterate and go through a couple of design plans with him before sort of going ahead with pricing. Then I went back home, and I started doing some measurements and figuring out how much this was going to cost me. And I actually used some of that walnut I talked about earlier for this commission. And I remember coming to a price, and it was about 700 quid for this cabinet that I came to, which was nothing for the amount of work that it was going to be. You know, I don't think materials would have covered it. Do you know what I mean? So I remember going to my girlfriend at the time and saying, 700 quid for this cabinet. Do you think that looks about right? And she goes, no one's going to buy that for that price. And I was like, oh yeah, you're probably right. So I went back to the client with that figure. I said, I'm going to stick to 700 quid. I think that sounds right. That's a fair price for, and it wasn't a fair price, but I was telling myself that because I really wanted the work. So I went back with all the pieces of paper in my hand, and I was dropping bits of paper all over the floor. And I thought, oh, I was so nervous about telling him it's going to cost him 700 quid. He's going to say, no, this is ridiculous. And I proposed the price to him, and he just looked at me and said, Jarrad, I can't pay you that. It's not going to work. And my heart sank. I was like, I can't believe it. Partner's right. I'm not going to get this work. I can't make a career out of this. That just started spiraling in my head, hopefully not showing that to him in my expression. But then he goes, we're going to pay you double, and then we're going to go from there. And I was literally like, what? This is unbelievable. Not only is this guy like taking a chance on me, he's also valued the work. And I was completely blown away by that. And it was from that experience that really taught me to not undersell myself or my work. Because he clearly saw something in the passion, I think, and you know, my enthusiasm for what I was doing. So completed the piece, and weirdly, it was just one of those pieces that just came together. There was no issues, which is like, it just came together. It just happened, and the install was fine. Yeah, and then he gave me a little tip at the end of it once it was installed, and it was just like, he was just the best client I've ever worked for. It was unbelievable. And I got so lucky with that. And then from him, there was word of mouth. To answer your question, it was basically from that first commission, there was word of mouth. I had a huge dining table that I was commissioned after that out of oak, with brass inlays that kind of matched the interior of a cabinet, brass cabinetry. So yeah, it was just luck, pretty much. Brute force and luck, I would say. Just absolute head down passion for what I was doing, and just got lucky, I think. Yeah. It's not a helpful answer, I suppose.
No, it
it's
really
one
is,
of those
because
things.
there's some people come out and they'll have dead set idea of the work they want to do.
Yeah.
We were talking earlier. I've been up to a show last week, and there's designers that have kind of stuck to their own designs and kind of gone like that. There might be, I don't know, less than 100 of furniture designers that work in timber that are probably doing okay, fairly successful. It may be more, it may be less, but I think probably less than 100 is about right, of independent solo designers who are makers that are doing well. And then I see a lot of people who are, creating these really beautiful things, doing fantastic content and Instagram, YouTube, whatever, but they're not being bought by galleries. They're not really selling, and they're just producing and producing and producing. And then, I mean, they might sell odd thing here or there. It's really beautiful work, but there isn't a demand for it because they haven't got that kind of the name yet.
Sure.
And I think it must be so hard to be at that point where you're not taking, like you've done, you've taken on and it's very sensible to do that. You find out what your client wants. You meet their needs with your execution and your design and your ability to read them, but also know what you're doing. But if you're doing your own thing from day one, it must be so disheartening if it's not kind of being picked up, especially if you're seeing all these other, contemporaries of yours that are doing really well. Yeah,
I can totally relate to that as well. I think, some of the work I've got, I still haven't sold. Some of the spec pieces I made, speculative work. I haven't sold some of that. So it's just one of those things that I think it's important to just keep producing to a level that you're happy with. And, I think maintaining your hand in the craft and continued making, I think is crucial for development. But I think also just, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. That is kind of the beauty of it. You just kind of, when I was self-employed, I would pay for as many exhibitions as I could afford, and I would just relentlessly be working on something.
So you did exhibit as well?
Yeah, I've done some exhibitions as well, yeah. Whatever I could afford, I've done quite a few. Some of them went really, really well, and I sold all of my work. And some of them I didn't sell anything. And for me, I like the exhibitions. I think they're really, really good experiences, because you can also meet potential clients. And I've had off the back of exhibitions, even though you don't sell anything, you then meet someone that commissions something from you later down the line. So I've had clients come to me previously that have seen my work at an exhibition, but none of the pieces quite fitted where they wanted it to go, or potentially, whatever design they have in their home, they wanted something slightly tweaked or different. And I've had commissions come off the back of that as well. So I think, my recommendation would just be get out there as much as possible. Whatever you can afford realistically. I know exhibitions are really expensive and they're a lot of work. There can be a lot of headache as well, especially if you're going up to London to do it. That can be a bit of a headache, but they are good to do, I think, is my experience from it. I think, it is getting your name out there as an independent maker. I think a lot of it can be down to luck, just being in front of the right people. I think we do, to a certain degree, make our own luck. Right.
Oh yeah.
So I think
this is what I say to everybody. Yeah. The harder I work, the luckier I seem to be.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly that. So I think, for me, it's just been, getting out there as much as possible and doing whatever I could to sort of keep it rolling, really.
And is that what you tell your students as well? When you're teaching, is it just about the kind of the skills and the process and the timber, or are you sort of saying, look, here's the pathway to, if you want to be successful, you've got to get out there, you've got to.
I think for sure. We have people at the school that are much more better at business than I am. some of the tutors from a background in business have a better understanding of, you know, marketing yourself and that type of thing. But yeah, for me, I think, you know, I've done a couple of talks at different places. I did a talk at Westdean, which I was so terrified for. And in that, I think I froze up on the stage in front of everyone for like half an hour. That's what it felt like, but it was probably just 2 seconds. But I went on a rampage on there. I went on a big ramble about how, you know, you shouldn't come into the craft seeking wealth, because, you know, unless, like you said before, unless you're at the top 1% of that, you're not going to be probably earning a lot of money making furniture, especially if you're self-employed, making bespoke stuff for private clients. You know, I kind of went and said, you need to do it for the passion of the craft and love what you're doing. And that came off really well. I think that's always been my ethos towards it. It's just do what you love, you know? Yeah.
I think that's really good. I think it's essential when people are coming into the industry, whether it's to learn a course or to change careers or whatever. Yeah. I mean, even that top 1%, I know a lot of them, and even that top 1%, 50% of them are probably getting by. You might look at their pieces and think, wow, £50,000 for a table.
Sure.
But the reality is that table might have taken 6 months to do.
Yeah.
And if it's just them on their own, just doing that, and the development time and the testing and everything else to get to that point, you think they must be loaded if they're selling a table for 50 grand, but that could be one of 2 pieces they've made that year, and it might have the material cost pretty high, whatever. They might not sell the other table. They might even sell that.
Yeah.
And then, you know, there are people who are doing, and fair play to them, who are doing really well. They've got years and years of waiting lists for commissions. They're selling their pieces every time they're made. They're sold. You know, every time a new collection drops, they're gone. And brilliant. It's really, really good to see those few people who are doing that. But actually, you know, I don't want to put anyone off. But the reality is, you know, you get by.
Yeah.
But like we keep saying, it's a nice job to have.
Yeah.
You know, you could be working in a, you know, as a carpenter, getting by, maybe a tiny bit more comfortably, but not really enjoying what you're doing. And probably it's quite hard work on the body as well. It's not a sustainable job, really.
Yeah, I think that's so true. I mean, I talk to friends, and I'm quite conscious of talking to my friends too much about what I do, because they're probably sick of me going, I just love what I do.
Do you know, it's so hard though, isn't it? I get home when we have social events and stuff like that, or if we go out and we're speaking to other people, I'm like, what do I talk about other than work? Because I seem to just spend my entire life either talking about work or thinking about work, you know?
Yeah, totally relatable. You know, I've got friends that earn a lot of money, but just hate what they do.
Yeah.
And I think there is a balance in there. There is a balance there somewhere, because I am quite aware of how lucky I am to be in the position I am, that, you know, I just adore what I do. And I'm very aware that not everyone has that luxury. So I'm quite conscious of sort of shouting out about it, really. But yeah, it's difficult. You know, I think the passion and enthusiasm will get you through it. If you can be totally just in love with what you're doing, I think that carries it. You know, if you're having to rough it for a little while, I think it can get you through it, really. Yeah, I don't know. It's a very unhelpful answer, I think, for people coming into it. But like you say, it is tough. It is tough.
But it's the same as any apprenticeship, really. If you go and do, let's say, bricklaying apprenticeship, you'll be a long time laying bricks before you start doing really well. You can earn a good day rate, but you can't be doing it forever, because your body will give up probably before retirement age. And you know, you could, if you're really good and you're on the right sort of jobs, you can make really good money. But that's exactly the same probably with making furniture. If you're really good and you get yourself out there and do the exhibitions, you find the right clients and you're making the right stuff, you probably could do quite well out of it, you know, as well comparatively of someone doing a trade. But I think there's definitely a movement at the moment where people seem to be thinking that people in trades do really, really well. And you see this on social media, you know, the videos of guys in America who are like, oh, I'm crying because my teacher said I never do well at school. And then they're like wiping their eyes with $50 notes or whatever, because they're doing really well as trade, and good for them.
Yeah.
But trades, it's not like you're going into investment banking. Every trade, you kind of got to be realistic. Even the jokes about plumbers and electricians and stuff. Unless you own the business, you're only ever going to be on a day rate. And if you own the business, it's up and down.
Yeah.
So I think people going into any trade expecting to be super wealthy, it's never going to happen.
Yeah.
Really.
I think also, like you say, if you're pursuing the wealth, well, that's just a different pathway entirely. Yeah. I think that can lead you down a dangerous road. I think just pursuing the wealth, because at the end of the day, you're just chasing something that's.
But you said something really important earlier about valuing your time and your execution, your skills, your design work, and not underselling yourself. And I think that's a trap that a lot of people might fall into.
Yeah, for sure.
It's a confidence thing, but it's also what I always say to everyone about pricing is, if we're designing and making, so we've done a couple of chairs with different designers and stuff, and the amount of work that goes into prototyping potentially a number of prototypes for this product, and then the amount of hours and machinery and timber and skills and finishing that go into making that product. I'm not designing that chair for people like me or you to buy.
Sure. Yeah.
Because I'd never spend that money on a chair. I can't afford it.
Yeah.
But that's the thing about fine furniture. It's like fine wine. We're not designing it. We're lucky that we can design and make it for our own homes, but we're not designing it for everybody.
Yeah.
It's not going to be on a shelf in middle of Lidl,
Yeah.
But a chair that we're sitting on might be, or we might buy it off Amazon for 30 quid a chair, whatever.
Yeah.
But certainly, that's the thing about fine furniture. You're an artisan, you're creating pieces of art. They need to be valued correctly. And so many people will get into the trap of going, oh yeah, I can make a table. Oh God, then I'll do the table for $2,000 or $3,000 or whatever it is. And you think, man, you may as well work at McDonald's. You learn more. More, and then you could just fund it on your own time.
It's so difficult. And I think what you've just said is so spot on. I think, yeah, I mean, I'm actually really bad at pricing work, as evidenced by the cabinet story. But I think it becomes easier the more you do, right?
Yeah.
So I no longer have that sort of fear of talking to clients about how much it costs. I mean, it's still uncomfortable, I find, in some cases. But at the end of the day, like you say, if it doesn't work, then they probably aren't the right client, because they're not investing the time. I think I heard you say something on a previous episode about, you can tell in the first 20 minutes of an interaction. 20 seconds of an interaction, you can tell when someone's the right client. If they're asking about the materials, how your process goes about, not, quickly getting it done and how much is it going to cost, that type of thing. I think it's
the first three questions they ask you.
Yeah.
If it's, how do you make it? What's your process? Where are you getting the timber from?
For sure.
How quickly can we expect to see drawings? That sort of thing. Great. If the first one is how much is it going to cost?
Usually
the rest right? Isn't, or you can tell by the rough answer that you give, the estimate, or I can't work it out yet until I've done it.
Yeah.
You can tell by the sound that comes after that if they're going to be the right client or not.
I've seen this in the catalogue. Can you produce it for this?
Classic. Yeah. Well, Howdens can sell me a kitchen for $3,000 and they're a big company. You can definitely make it cheap. You think, no, that's not how it works.
It's terrible.
But I think that's a perception thing. I was speaking again with my friend Damo about it, and he started a YouTube channel where he films and makes videos about the projects that he's doing. And it's something we've toyed with the idea, but I think I'm kind of going, I love what we're doing here on the podcast, talking to people about what inspires them and how they get on. But I liked the idea of filming the process of what you're doing, because some people think, I think some people think that because they go into a big workshop or I guess we wouldn't call this a factory, but it's a bigger workshop.
Sure.
That we're just going to click our fingers and it just appears like it's made in China or something. It's going to come off a shipping container and here's all your furniture or here's all your joinery. But I think there's a huge gap in the understanding of the manufacturing of it. I mean, it's the same with anything, same with cars. People don't go to a car garage, a forecourt and go, I don't want to pay £15,000 for this new car because, it's come from a Japanese factory, or it's made in a factory. Why should I pay that much money? But even cars, I mean, have you been to the Rolls-Royce factory in Chichester?
Yes, I know. Yeah, I know Audrey, the one that she does a lot of the marquetry on all the
mezzanine upstairs.
I'm not sure.
Oh man, yeah. I tell you, I've had a couple of tours there because I taught at a school nearby, and we took the kids in there and had a few tours, and it's something else.
Yeah.
But you realise that the work that goes into a car like that,
yeah, for sure,
and how unique and bespoke,
right?
the marquetry, the veneering, the stitching, the upholstery. Yeah. I mean, the engineering aside, which is kind of a whole other story, and the level of testing and how long it takes from that car to start at one end of that production line and come to the end. And when you hear the price, you think, first of all, oh my God, I'd never pay that. But again, I never would pay that because I'm not their customer. But but you think, actually, for the amount of time and the amount of R&D, materials, labour, testing, everything else that's gone into it, actually probably represents fairly good value.
Yeah.
And then it makes you think, well, if Ford, let's say, can sell, or classic Nissan, if the Nissan Micra can be sold for, whatever it is, 16 grand brand new or 10 grand brand new, whatever, like, how is that even possible?
Yeah, it's pretty wild, isn't it?
But it's the same with furniture and timber. How are IKEA doing these bits of furniture for 100 quid when...
That's a banned word in my vocabulary.
You know what, though? It was for me. And then I think actually it serves a really good purpose.
Yeah.
Because people are buying furniture. Again, it's a monocrop softwood manufacture and plywood manufacture. But they're buying furniture that is actually fairly well made. It lasts okay time. The design, from a design perspective, is not awful, and it's timber. And I think it's a gateway drug into maybe buying nicer furniture, but it also serves a purpose. It's like, it's everyman furniture. Anyone can buy it.
Sure.
It's not out of the reach of everyday people. I think there's a lot to be said for that. Yeah. And the fact that they've got really quite good designers designing really good stuff, very, very functional. I think that's really good. It takes a huge segment of the market, but again, it's that mindset of, are people that are going to go and buy furniture from IKEA going to be my customer? And for us, it's absolutely not. So it's really good that people that wouldn't be our customers are able to buy stuff that's still really nice.
That's true. Yeah, that's a fair point.
Because maybe in a couple of years' time, they might be in a different position, and they might be our customers.
Valid,
know?
That is totally valid.
And better that they're buying stuff that's nice and timber, and they've got to put it together themselves really badly. But it's kind of better that they're doing that than, getting plastic shit.
Yeah, fair point. Yeah. I think one of the other things I struggle with is like the epoxy. Because we've been looking at like different ways of jointing stuff as well, in terms of like the glues that we use. Because for me, obviously, nature-inspired furniture, if I'm covering that or gluing that all together with epoxy, that doesn't really conform to the ethos, right? So for me, I've just done a mushroom table based on like mycelium networks, and that's not finished with any oil or anything. It's just jointed together and then sanded, wetted. So there's no actual oil or wax or anything like that on it. So in theory, if you were to leave it outside, it would just rot down and there'd be nothing left of it, which is a concept I really like. But I know a couple of people have been like, is that practical? And I get that. That is a question. That's one of the things I love about the piece so much, is that it raises that question. It's like, it is a functional piece of furniture, but it would probably, if you just left it outside, it would just disappear. I quite like that, being able to make something that would interact with where it's come from and return to that mycelium network if you just leave it. And I think,
but at the same time, it could be argued that you're designing for obsolescence then. Someone's going to have to buy another one in 10 years.
Of course. Obviously, hopefully no one's going to leave it outside.
You're like the Apple of furniture making.
No, definitely not. But no, I like exploring that concept with how we interact with furniture and the natural world. And part of my concept of the furniture design is, how can we bring the natural world into people's homes and appreciate the material? Because also that, I took that to an exhibition, that mushroom table, and it had the most interest out of any of the other pieces I had, because everyone was like, what finish did you use on that? there is no finish on that. It's the raw sycamore. It's just that
Sycamore
beautiful
as
colour.
well.
Yeah.
It's got that little bit of green hue coming through.
This stuff I used was pure white.
Was it?
Yeah, it was really, really nice.
Wow.
They say a timber that should only be harvested in the full light of a moon.
Full light of a moon.
Yeah.
And that stops the green tinge, or
some hippie story.
Oh,
But yeah, it was a beautiful timber. But I quite like the concept of that piece because it's exploring our interaction with the natural world. I think it's quite nice. That's what I quite like about making furniture, is making a little bit of a statement about what we're doing, and how we interact. That's quite fun for me, I think.
Yeah, it's something that when I'm designing our own furniture, I mean, we essentially we sell out. We're like guns for hire. We make furniture for a lot of different people, but we don't have our own range as such. I make stuff for my own house. I make stuff maybe for close friends and family as gifts, but it's something that I like to do, but it's just finding the time. We're always busy doing other people's stuff, which I love doing, and it inspires me. Every designer that we work with inspires me a little bit.
Nice.
for a way that we can make our own range maybe one day. But it's difficult because I seem to be inspired by everything and nothing in equal measure.
Yeah.
And then sometimes things that really inspire me, like George Nakashima's, I mean, every woodworker aspires to be like that. But then I look at it and think, he's done it. And there's a million people that are copying how he's done it.
Yeah.
And if I want to do my own thing, but then I find myself, I'm in this trap of wanting to be so unique that I'm different from everybody else.
So difficult.
But being inspired by everything else that I see.
Yeah.
And then I think, well, if I'm so unique that I'm doing something completely different from anything else anyone's ever done, probably no one's going to like it.
That's a fair point. This is another thing that is a challenge, I think, for furniture making, because, what route do you take? How do you create pieces that are unique to yourself as a maker? I look at some makers on social media and think they've got a very specific look, which I think is really, really appealing. And I look at my stuff and think it's quite sporadic. A lot of the pieces I've made there is a link in all of it to nature, I think, but they're quite sporadic. You see the photo shoots of different makers that have like the same backdrop and the really exquisite looking pieces, but they all have this, they marry together really,
common
really well.
Thread.
Yeah. And I think that's really admirable in work, is having a range or a plethora of furniture that all has this connection as you look through their portfolio. I think that's quite nice.
Well, you could just carve a little mouse or something. You could have a completely different range of furniture, which is every piece is totally different, and you just have a little carving on it, like the mouse man or something.
True.
So, it's difficult, isn't it, having that common thread and that common. What I'd like when we start doing our own stuff is to look at any piece that we've done and know instantly that it's ours.
Yeah, that's nice.
And it's thinking about how do you achieve that?
Yeah.
How does it become instantly recognizable as yours?
Yeah.
And I think that's for some people, like you're saying, they got it. We could probably think of 3 or 4 people straight away who you'd know their work anywhere.
Yeah.
And that, how do you do that? But it's such an interesting space to be a part of, especially when you go to shows and you see the wealth of stuff that is out there, and the incredible lengths people go to create fantastic furniture. It's inspiring, and it's a wonderful kind of world to be in. And actually, I find 99% of the people in it are just lovely, friendly people that will share methods, share ideas, inspiration, timber suppliers, sources, everything like that. You get 1 or 2 for
I was going to say, I agree with that mostly, I think.
99%. I think there's that 1% that are very guarded and, for whatever reason. And it might be because think they've sprung on something totally unique and don't want to kind of give that information up, which fair enough, because you spend a lot of time putting effort in and whatnot.
That's true.
But it's a nice space to be a part of, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I know. I definitely agree with that. I think, for the most part, I've had incredible interactions with different makers, and I've been very lucky to work with some of them. Person of note, I would say that I really, really enjoyed working with Philip Walker. So before I started with Aidan, I worked with a sculpture artist, Philip Walker, just in his studio carving. And he taught me so much, not just about trees and that type of thing, but the form of work. So I went and worked for him from a background of fine furniture making and working to really, really precise measurements. And one of the distinctions with working with Philip was we would often be working on a piece and then take a step back and look at it and go, that doesn't quite look right. And then we'd adjust with the carving machines or whatever it might be. And that for me was quite difficult to get my head around to begin with, because it's like, we're not working to precise measurements. There's no line on here. What am I meant to do? But having that change in mindset of if it looks right, it's right. That was really influential for me and how I work as well, I think. And carving raw forms, organic forms, which is a lot of my work is, it lends itself to that very, very well. So I'm, very grateful for the time I spent with him. He taught me a lot about that. And I kind of utilize that still now from what I learned with him in both aspects of furniture making. So you're working to very, very fine tolerances, to measurements, drawings, whatever it might be, but you're also incorporating that aesthetic, mindset of a sculpture artist as well. And I think walking both ways with that is how I like to work, because you're getting the best and the most enjoyment, I think, out of the work we do. I love that. I love that type of work.
And is your work mainly done by hand, or using machines? And
yeah, so I use machines, of course. Yeah, I mean, I think I only know of probably one maker that does stuff just by hand. I think the reality is, trying to make a living out of just handwork is very niche and very difficult. But you could have a waiting list of people that would want to come to you for that specific reason, that you only use hand tools. But yeah, I definitely use machines in my work to sort of do the tedious tasks, right? And then so I can spend more time doing the fun bits, the hand carving and hand shaping, that type of thing. Refined tools, but typically, yeah, all of my work's finished with hand tools. I have definitely a preference for refined hand tool work. I think it's just, I think as a furniture maker, that's kind of the mindset.
That's the joy, isn't it? That's the last bit.
Yeah, it's the romantic concept, isn't it? At your bench with your tools, they're extensions of your hands. You're producing stuff. I love it. That refinement to your craft with those hand tools. Yeah, that's, for me, that's the best bit.
I agree.
A set of dovetails or whatever I'm in, if I've got a bench laid out with tools and I'm in the zone, you're in that flow state, that's my happy space right there, amongst a load of work to be done. Yeah, I love it. At the bench.
I agree. Now we're doing larger commercial things. We were talking about this earlier. It's that balance of, now we've got to look at the time things are taking. So dovetails, all our draw boxes are dovetailed. Anything we're doing that needs a corner joint, generally it would be dovetailed, but we bought a dovetail machine now. So we just, put it in, set it up, done.
Yeah.
And I think there's a bit of me that is a bit sad about that we're doing the dovetails on the machine, but
I know, I think it
rather
has
than
its place,
doing it by
right?
hand. Oh yeah, definitely. And we can set it up with different configurations and stuff. So it's not just uniform. We can set bigger, smaller gaps, whatever. So it's nice. And we've got the 5-axis CNC. So we spend a bit of time doing it. It will save about 2 weeks on a spoke shape.
100%.
So we're kind of going all in on the technology and the machines to speed things up. But then sometimes I think when the components all land on the bench and like a lot of the hard work's done, you essentially, not always, but sometimes you're just kind of assembling and finishing. And although on a production run, that's great, sometimes I feel like some of that romance is lost when you're working at a commercial kind of level. But I would love the idea of, the romantic idea of like putting the wood on the bench and planing it by hand and spoke shaving it and using your chisels and stuff. Whereas the reality is, if you were doing a mortise and tenon, we just put it on the tenon and go the mortise and just bang it out.
For sure. I think, that is, like you say, that's the reality of it. Because your client would be paying a lot more for you to be working with hand tools.
Oh my God, like 10 times.
Yeah, exactly.
100 times more in some.
Yeah, it's just not feasible, I think, to either be self-employed or run a business like that, because I just think it would probably take a little bit too long for most people. But that being said, I had a client come to me before that wanted can't remember what it was. It was something they wanted made just with hand tools. They didn't want me to use any machines, and I had to document the whole process, which was quite interesting. I used a big wooden foreplane to plane down the rough sawn stock. It took ages, but yeah, it was good. It's good fun to do stuff like that, I think. Something that connects you back to the real craft, sort of the heritage skills. I think it's something nice about that type of hard work, planing it down from rough sawn.
What we do with the apprentices sometimes is, as part of the apprenticeship, they got to learn how to do that, because we can say to them, like, if we have a power cut,
of course,
you still got to work.
Yeah, yes, I love that. But also, not just that, but you're instilling the discipline on not just maintaining your tools, but being able to achieve a flat surface without the use of a machine.
Yeah.
So, when I make a piece of furniture, nothing would be done straight off the machine. You would be fettling something or finishing something with a hand tool to then comprise a larger section of furniture. So one of the things we do, the students that come and train with us at the school, is they will start with a rough sawn piece of wood. So waney edged board, super, super rough, could be twisted all over the place, depending on how much we like the student. But then we would get them to cut that up and then plane that in nice and flat from rough sawn, because it really instills that mindset and discipline, and looking after your tools, like I said, and just being able to achieve that. So when you go and take that wood to the machine, you know exactly what it's meant to do and how to work it through that machine.
When you appreciate the machine a lot more as well. If you're taught, here's a bit of wood, it goes through that saw, that plane and that thickness of that spindle.
Yeah.
You may as well just be on an assembly line in a factory. But if you actually learn that machine is taken away from you having to saw it, that machine's 100%. Taken away from you having to spend hours on the planer, you actually have a real good appreciation. I mean, I love our machinery, but I love it because it's great, and it's great to use, and it saves all the time, but I love it because I can see the job that it's doing. It's brilliant compared to the hours and hours and hours that I take to do it by hand.
Absolutely.
You get a good appreciation of like how good machines are, but you also understand what their limitations are, because if you can't do it by hand, or if you can do it by hand but you can't do it on a machine, if you wanted to plane something but you wanted to put a bevel on it at the same time, or chamfer on the edge or whatever, you can't do that on thickness, so you have to then go back to something else or another machine. But it's the versatility of doing stuff by hand versus
I think so.
Time on a machine.
I think it also gives you those fundamental skills in being able to do all the additional joinery as well. So material preparation. So the first 3 months of the curriculum, they are literally just doing everything by hand, and then they progress onto the machine shop.
That's really good.
I think so. Good. I think it's a good way of doing it, because like I say, you just get those core skills locked down before you can go into the machines.
Saves loads on your electricity bill as well. So Jarrad, I ask everyone this question. 18-year-old Jarrad, what advice would you give 18-year-old Jarrad?
Oof, that's a good question.
Knowing what you know now, having been through what you've been through to get to where you are.
I think what I would probably say is comparison is the thief of joy.
Oh, that's my favourite saying. At home more than anywhere else.
Yeah. I think I was in a bit of a mindset when I was out of college, and maybe, just comparing myself to where everyone else was, not just within the crew that I was with, but also on social media, and looking at all these other furniture makers that were doing all these fancy exhibitions and achieving all these whatever, and thinking, why am I not getting any of that? And I think that was, for me, a really important thing to remember, that actually what I was doing is pretty cool, and I love what I do. So at that time of being 18, everything was it was coming together, but I was constantly looking ahead and going, why am I not here yet? Why am I not here yet? And I think that's quite a dangerous mindset to get yourself into, isn't it? So I think just appreciating more of where I was at the time at 18 would probably be better mindset, I think.
I think that's really good.
I wouldn't change anything. I wouldn't change the journey I've been on. It was good. It was good fun. From 18 to where I am now, I wouldn't change anything.
Excellent. And where can people see your work?
Oh, good question. So, well, depends how soon this podcast comes out, but I've got an exhibition actually, when I leave here, I'm going to go set up an exhibition in Farnham. And then we've got an open weekend at the school this weekend, which is the last weekend of October. So, you can find me on social media, all that type of thing. Occasionally do exhibitions still. I work with a few galleries as well, so all that's pretty much on the social media. So you can find me on there. Yeah.
Are they London galleries or
some? Not galleries in London. There's galleries in Farnham and kind of West Sussex area. Got a few pieces in different places, but it's all linked to the social media. Everything's on there. But yeah,
take a look.
Yeah.
Well, Jarrad, thanks ever so much.
Thank you very much for having me.
Really interesting conversation, and good luck at the open day. Good luck with the exhibition.
Thank you.
I hope to see you again in the future.
Appreciate it.
Cheers.
Nice one.